Hi, it's me, Ingrid INFP, and I wanted to talk about a video that I watched and like my unbaked ideas that make me confused. And it was about Ace Dad Advice, who is an asexual dad who gives advice to younger, mostly asexual people on the internet. And he makes very good videos. It's kind of a niche of like the asexual community, because it's often a community that feels very alone in a world that is not geared towards people who are asexual, And I sometimes watch his videos, not often. I usually watch other channels, but his video happened on my feed, and it was a video about the difference between platonic relationships and friendships. And I thought immediately, like, oh, it's the same thing. But apparently it's not. And I started questioning it because I don't really agree. And I got into kind of an argument with a person in the comments because I said something that they didn't like, which was that Americans, I actually wrote like, Americans often consider acquaintances friends when, they're just acquaintances. And the other person was like, you're being hypocritical right now. And yes, kind of, but not really. Because what I wanted, what the premise of the video was that friendship is less close and less intimate than a platonic relationship, which is a separate thing on its own. And I had never heard of this platonic relationship thing. I had heard of a queer platonic relationship, a QPR, which is basically when two, or an asexual and asexual or non-asexual person get together and they have a relationship that does not include sex, and sometimes might not include romantic things, depending on the relationship. But I was confused because apparently there's this thing that is stronger than friendship that is not friendship. And to me, I feel that it is friendship. It's just a close friend, a best friend. And I realized, well, I'm not seeing things as the way that everybody else does. And part of that, I suspect, is due to me being autistic, and I guess that my view of relationships is different from other people's. I thought that platonic just meant that it was either it meant friendship, or it was an umbrella term for anything that was non-romantic, non-sexual. So basically everything from friendship, teacher-child relationship, or teacher-student-pupil relationship, or parent-to-child relationship, or sibling relationships, or co-worker relationships. I thought that it was like this big thing that encompassed all sorts of different grades of closeness and relationships that just weren't romantic or sexual, not partners in that sort of sense. But I might be wrong. I guess that my definitions are different than the dictionary definitions or the definitions that most people would give. I don't know if Ace Dad advice is typical in that sense, and if I am just outside of the norm once again in my understanding of these social terms that seem very fraught with different interpretations. Now, to me, I find it an insult to my friends to call them anything else than friends. And I would say that For me, friendship is an extremely important. The closest relationships in my life are friends. And for me, the word friendship has a much deeper meaning than it seems like it does for many other people. So I don't find a use to using platonic relationship for something that's closer than a friend. Because for me, a friend, the word is very important. I don't have many friends. My friends are very close to me in my mind. Now, I don't know how the other person perceives. Oftentimes, my commitments to the relationship in terms of friendship is often like I'm way more invested than the other person. Oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes. But it's kind of like we are both on the same page that we are friends. I thought, but sometimes people will consider me an acquaintance, and I realize like I'm considering them a friend, and that's like fine. Sometimes I misinterpret and I think that somebody wants to be friends and they actually want to be romantic partners. And I'm like, wait, no. I didn't understand that. But so, to me, I don't see the value of having something that is closer than friendship, but that is not romantic or sexual. But then I found out that the difference between, according to this video, the difference between platonic relationships and friendships is the level of commitment and the level of, like you consider somebody like a brother, I guess, like a member of your family. But that's how I feel about my best friends, So, okay. And also the fact that it kind of seems like when you go into a platonic relationship, you kind of like have a contract, or you kind of like have these, you kind of discuss this. I don't know if this is true. I just got that kind of vibe from that video. Of it's like, you build your life around each other. I guess. I kind of see that with my friends in a way. My best friend is Italian, and I see how he builds his life. He builds a lot of his life around his family, but he also builds a lot of his life around his friends. And he's the kind of guy who will come and help you move, regardless on where on the friend scale you are. But he does put a lot of effort into helping out his friends and being there for his friends and talking to his friends. And I think that why would you need something different, like this separate category? And another thing that I also found out was that friends can have different level of attraction to each other, and yet decide that they are going to stay friends. Like if one of them has a romantic attraction to the other, they can still decide to stay friends. Well, in a platonic relationship, apparently the definition of a platonic relationship is that both people have a platonic attraction to each other. But like, that kind of cheapens the idea of friend, and also kind of, like the idea of friendship isn't about attraction. I find like that's the whole thing. You're not having an attraction when you are friends, at least to me. I don't know. Like there's the attraction of like you are connecting and you are happy to be around the person, and you feel like warm around the person, and like happy, and you want to interact more with that person. But like, I don't see the difference. I don't know, it's just confusing to me. And this video is not helping me getting me over my confusion. But so yeah, I got a bit confused, and then I got into this whole discussion about that I said that I wanted to expand the definition of friend so that it could, encompass deeper connections than how society has deemed that friendship is, like basically devaluing the word friendship. And then this commenter came for me to say that it was actually hypocritical of me. I can't have it both ways. I can't both expand the definition of friendship and then say that acquaintances aren't friends. And I think that that's where we diverge, is that for me, platonic is a very basic umbrella term that encompasses everything, and that friendship is reserved for the deeper connections. While for a lot of people, friendship is wide and platonic relationship is a very specific thing. Or it might just be a stab advice that has this idea, or people in the asexual community that have this idea. But I don't agree with that idea, because for me, platonic means basically anything and everything, and friendship is a part of that, but very distinct from, for example, the love that you have between me and my parents, or me and my favorite teacher, or like, I find that it is distinct from certain things. Friendship is distinct from certain either less close relationships, such as acquaintances, or certain bonds that you have with your family. So I find that familial relationships are different from friendships, even though I can feel like, oh, my best friend is like a brother to me. I'll never know, because I only have one brother, and the relationship that I have with my brother is not the same as the one that I have with my best friend. So I guess it's my autistic literal thinking. Like, I'm like, well, these are two very different relationships, so I can't compare them to each other. And yet, yes, I do compare friendships to each other, where I have like a best friend and I have friends that are less good friends. So I do have kind of like a spectrum within that. But so for me, I want friendship to be encompassing a certain close, intimate relationship. But I do want to have a delineation between friendship and acquaintanceship. And then again, as I've said in a video before, I am on the asexual, aromantic spectrum, and I would consider myself, if this label was ever understood by anybody, which it isn't, because nobody knows about it, but the term qua or koi sexual, core romantic, which is basically that I do not understand where any of these delineations go. So I've labeled myself that when I was a teen. Then I decided, well, I can't just like label myself that I don't know, But then I've come close more and more to like that label, because I find that these delineations make no sense to me, And it might make me broken or whatever. It's like, okay, yeah, it might make me extremely weird and unempathetic, or whatever you could call me, and make me in my bubble or whatever. But I am genuinely confused about what are the norms of what is considered what relationships are considered what. And you ask different people, they will give you different answers, because I think that this is an extremely individual thing. However, we do live in a society, and I think that the way that we all use words is dependent on the society that we live in, because we use language to understand each other, right? And I realized that maybe I am on a completely different wavelength than other people, and maybe they really do see the word friendship as different than the way that I see it. And so for me, like when my ESFP coworker, for example, became my friend, I was kind of confused. But now I've fully understood that they consider me a friend and I consider them a friend, and now we're friends. And it's a whole different dynamic than when we were coworkers. So I do see the differences, you know? But we're not romantic, you know? And my friendship with my best friend is not romantic. It's a friendship, you know? So I do see delineations, but I think that I see these relationships and attractions and all that differently than others, and it does lead to problems for me, because it leads to misunderstandings, I guess, and it also leads me to being like confused in how to navigate anything. So yeah, I don't have better answers. I wonder, what do you think about these terms? I personally will just keep calling my friends friends, and I'm not using the word platonic relationship in any sense. I will continue to say, like, okay, well, we have a familial relationship, or we have a friendship, or that we have, or that I don't want a romantic relationship or a sexual relationship. Now, to complicate things even more, I mean, some people are friends with benefits, and then it's like, well, would you consider that platonic? Like, I don't know what these words mean anymore. But yeah, it really made me think, because I don't know if I stand with the majority on this issue, or if I'm completely on my own, or if I misinterpreted the video by Ace Dad's advice, and in which case I apologize. I don't know. I don't know what will make me understand it better, to be honest. So yeah, tell me what you guys think. Have a great day.